town stood silent, desolate, forgotten. Buildings loomed skeletal against a bruised sky. Windows, vacant eyes stared out at nothing. A thick fog rolled in, swallowing the streets, muffling all sound. The air hung heavy, thick with the smell of decay. Dead leaves skittered along the cracked asphalt, propelled by an unseen wind. This place had a heartbeat once. Now, only silence remained, a silence that whispered of secrets. A lone figure emerged from the fog. Ethan, his name was. Lost he was, seeking shelter for the night. He hadn't planned on finding this place, this ghost of a town. But darkness had fallen, and he had nowhere else to go. His car had sputtered its last breath miles back. Now he walked, each step echoing in the unnatural quiet. A shiver ran down his spine. Something wasn't right here. He could feel it in his bones. The wind picked up, swirling the fog around him. It carried whispers, too faint to discern. Or was it just his imagination? His hand instinctively went to the small silver crucifix he wore beneath his shirt. A comfort, his mother called it. Protection, he thought now. He pressed on, drawn deeper into the town's embrace. Ahead, a flickering light caught his eye. Hope flared in his chest, a sign of life in this desolate place. He quickened his pace, his heart pounding in his ears. As he approached, the light resolved itself, cutting through the dense fog that enveloped the street. A lamp, hanging crookedly from a post outside a building, its light flickering as if struggling to stay alive. A hotel, the faded sign proclaimed, though it looked more like a relic from a forgotten time. Ethan hesitated. The building looked as if it were about to crumble in on itself, its walls sagging and windows shattered. But the light, it beckoned him, a strange, almost hypnotic pull that he couldn't resist. He reached the door and pushed, the wood groaning under the pressure of his hand. It creaked open, revealing a dusty lobby, filled with cobwebs and the remnants of what once might have been grand furniture. The air inside was thick with the smell of mildew and something else, something unpleasant like decay and forgotten memories. And then he saw it. A figure silhouetted in the dim light at the end of the room, unmoving as if waiting for him. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, a mix of fear and curiosity driving him forward. He took a cautious step forward, the floorboards creaking ominously under his weight. The figure's face was shrouded in shadow, its features indistinguishable, adding to the eerie atmosphere. With a trembling hand, Ethan reached out, unsure of what he would find. Suddenly, the figure moved, startling Ethan, and sending a chill down his spine. He stepped back, eyes wide with shock as the figure began to speak in a voice that seemed to echo from the past. "Welcome," it said, the word hanging in the air like a ghostly whisper. Ethan stood frozen, unsure of what to do next, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. Section 5. The Chase. The figure turned, its face obscured by the shadows. It moved towards him, slow at first, then faster. Ethan stumbled back, fear gripping his throat. He turned and ran, the figure's heavy footsteps pounding behind him. He dodged down alleyways, his lungs burning. The fog seemed to cling to him, slowing his progress. He could hear the figure getting closer, its rasping breath echoing in the stillness. There was nowhere to hide in this town, nowhere to escape. Section 6. Sanctuary? Then he saw it. A church, its steeple piercing the fog-laden sky. It stood like a beacon in the mist, a promise of refuge amidst the chaos. Hope surged through him, a desperate, almost frantic hope. He scrambled up the steps, his feet barely touching the ground, and threw open the heavy wooden doors with all his might. Sanctuary. He slammed the doors shut behind him, the sound echoing in the vast, empty space. The echo seemed to linger, as if the church itself was acknowledging his presence. Silence. He held his breath, listening for any sound of pursuit. The silence was almost deafening, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Nothing, no footsteps, no voices, no signs of the danger that had been chasing him. He was safe, for now. The realization brought a wave of relief that washed over him. He leaned against the door, his heart still pounding in his chest. each beat a reminder of the narrow escape. His breath came in ragged gasps, the adrenaline slowly ebbing away. As his eyes adjusted to the dimness, he began to make out the details of the church. The faint light filtering through the stained glass windows cast eerie patterns on the floor. It was old, ancient even, its surfaces covered in a thick layer of dust and cobwebs. The air was musty, filled with the scent of age and neglect. The pews stood in silent rows, untouched for what seemed like decades. He took a tentative step forward, the floorboards creaking under his weight. Each step echoed in the vast emptiness, a reminder of his solitude. He was alone, but for the first time in a long while, he felt a glimmer of hope. Finding a pew, he sat down, the wood hard and unyielding beneath him. He closed his eyes, allowing himself a moment of rest. The church, despite its age and disrepair, felt like a sanctuary, a place where he could finally breathe. Section 7. The Unveiling. He took a step back, his foot catching on something that lay discarded on the floor. He looked down. It was a doll. A porcelain doll, its once pretty face now cracked and sinister. And it was then that he noticed the other dolls. They were everywhere, lining the pews propped up against the altar, their vacant eyes staring accusingly at him. He felt a chill run down his spine. This place wasn't a sanctuary. It was a prison. Section 8. Inescapable Fate. He whirled around, his blood turning to ice. The figure stood in the doorway, its features now clear in the dim light filtering through the stained glass windows. It wasn't human. It was something else, something ancient and evil. And in its hands, it held a doll. A doll that looked exactly like him. He understood then. This town, these dolls, they were all part of its collection. And he was the latest addition. Section 9. Alone in the Darkness. The night was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves and distant, haunting cries. The forest seemed to close in, each shadow a potential threat, each sound a harbinger of doom. The figure advanced, its grin widening, revealing rows of sharp, pointed teeth. It moved with a predatory grace, each step echoing in the stillness, a chilling reminder of the danger that lurked in the darkness. Ethan sank to his knees, his crucifix falling from his grasp. The weight of his fear and despair pressed down on him, making it hard to breathe. The once sacred space now felt like a prison, its walls closing in. There was nowhere left to run, no hope of escape. The darkness seemed to pulse with a life of its own, mocking his every attempt to find a way out. His heart raced, pounding in his chest like a drumbeat of impending doom. He was trapped, alone in the darkness with the echoes of his own terror. Every corner he turned led to more shadows, more fear. The walls seemed to whisper his name, taunting him with the inevitability of his fate. The last thing he saw before the darkness consumed him was the doll's face. Its eyes seemed to follow him, gleaming with a malevolent intelligence. The painted smile was a cruel mockery of his plight, a reminder of the innocence lost. Its painted smile seemed to widen, mocking him as the shadows closed in. The room grew colder, the air thick with the scent of decay. The doll's presence was suffocating, a silent witness to his final moments. The town remained, silent and shrouded in fog, its secrets buried once more. The streets were empty, the buildings standing as silent sentinels to the horrors that had unfolded. The fog wrapped around everything, a shroud of mystery and dread. Another soul claimed by the darkness, lost and forgotten. The town would continue to stand, a monument to the countless lives it had consumed. Each soul a whisper in the wind, a shadow in the fog, forever alone in the darkness.